I want to beat Pokemon FireRed by taking the fewest steps possible. Let me explain. To beat this game, you need to travel to and defeat all 8 gym leaders and become the champion. As you do this, the game is counting the number of steps you take in the overworld. That means, in theory, if you play with perfect optimization, you can beat the game while taking the fewest steps possible to get there. Today, I'm gonna figure out how to do that. But in the open world of Kanto, where gyms can be challenged in like any order you want, finding the optimal path isn't gonna be easy. But let's start simple. First, we need to get from our room in Pallet Town to the first gym in Pewter City. I've installed a step counter in the layout, so I can see as I take my first few steps. This is a metric the game itself collects for things like hatching eggs, overworld poison, and the Safari Zone. The game counts a step whenever I initiate a movement from one tile to the next. But as you'll see, this can get very complicated. Does surfing or spin tiles or riding a bike down a hill count as a step? For now, let's just head down the stairs so we can exit our house. And to get there, we need to walk as efficiently as possible. That means no double backing or walking past where we need to go, simply going from point A to point B in the least number of tiles. It doesn't matter how we do that, as long as we're doing it optimally. We reach the outside of the house, and now we need to head north, cutting each turn as close as possible to trigger a cutscene with Professor Oak. Stepping on one of these 2 tiles is the only way to start the cutscene. If you go straight to the lab instead, Oak won't be there, and you've wasted steps. Oak walks you back, but these don't count as steps since we aren't triggering the movement ourselves. Oak now invites us to select a starter Pokemon, and in this game, the starter we pick directly influences the number of steps we take, because each of the Pokemon has a physical location. Meaning, to take the fewest steps, we want to select the closest one to us, which just so happens to be Bulbasaur. In fact, the game will even let you interact with the Pokeball from the side, meaning I don't need to spend any extra steps moving to the right. I can get Bulbasaur and immediately walk down. Blue stops us for a Pokemon battle first. It doesn't matter if we win or lose this battle, either way, we'll stay on the same tile we were on as Blue walks around us. So, it's better to win the fight and get to level 6. Now, we walk out of the lab and head north towards Route 1. This is a zigzag path, so we hug the turns to move the fewest tiles. In Viridian, we walk to the Pokemart and get the parcel that needs to be returned to Oak, which means we'll be going back to Pallet Town and then coming back to Viridian. Walking there and back gets us to the catching tutorial at 379 steps. However, there's a faster way. Going from Pallet to Viridian and back to Pallet means we're backtracking, going to a place that we've already been. Understanding where I've already been is vitally important in this challenge. To get to a new location in Pokemon, you have to walk there yourself, but that's not the case for returning to locations. You can fly there, teleport there, tons of ways to travel back. And although we don't have access to flying or teleporting right now, there is something else we can do. If we were to force our Bulbasaur to faint, we would run out of Pokemon and black out. This warps you to the Pokemon Center you most recently entered. Or, if you haven't entered one yet, it warps you back to your mom in Pallet Town. So, I could get the parcel and walk to the closest wild Pokemon tile. Then, rather than walking back and forth looking for wild Pokemon, I can spin on the tall grass tile. This does not count as steps, but it can trigger a wild Pokemon. Next, I purposely feint Bulbasaur, warping me all the way back to Pallet. I give the parcel, walk up Route 1 again, and hit the catching tutorial at 346 steps. 33 less steps than before. But there's an even better way. In your initial trip to Viridian, to get to the Pokemart for the parcel, you need to walk right by the Pokemon Center. If you stop and enter the building, the game now sets Viridian as your blackout warp location. You don't even need to heal your Pokemon, simply entering the building marks it as your checkpoint. Even better, entering buildings and walking out of buildings do not count as steps. This is likely because the game doesn't want you to hatch an egg during a scene transition, but here it means that setting Viridian City as our checkpoint takes no extra steps. Now, after receiving the parcel, we walk down Route 1 ourselves. This is fewer steps than walking up because we don't need to go in a zigzag pattern. We can go in a straight line by hopping over ledges. The straight line does get blocked by a tree, so we either need to go left or right around it. The left is one less step, so we go that way. Return the parcel, get Pokeballs, and head back to Route 1. On the very first tall grass tile, we can black out, warp to Viridian, and hit the catching tutorial at 313 steps. A full 66 less steps than walking all the way back. Before we actually black out though, there's a few things I want to do first. My primary goal is to catch my first wild Pokemon of the game, Pidgey. We'll need a Pokemon to learn Fly later, but that won't be for a while. However, we will need this Pidgey for something else very soon. Now that I have Pidgey, I can black out. But since I'm going to be dying and getting healed anyway, I might as well take the opportunity to grind on as many wild Pokemon as I can. I'm totally fine to use up my PP and HP since it'll be getting refreshed in a minute anyway. Grinding allows me to get Bulbasaur up to level 14 and Pidgey up to level 17, way higher than necessary given that I haven't even reached the catching tutorial yet. But in challenging myself to take the fewest steps, I'm eliminating a lot of the benefits the game gives you. It means no extra trips to heal, no stepping a bit out of the way to grab potions and revives. I need to stay on the most efficient path, meaning I have to take advantage of every opportunity to level up. On that note, I feel inclined to mention that everything I talk about doing in this challenge, I have manually done. I did not use PK Hex or a rare candy hack to get my Pokemon to that level. I actually did it myself. I don't want to accidentally change the game in a way that really wouldn't be possible, and therefore make the steps I get at the end illegitimate. I wouldn't know how much I could grind my Pokemon on one tile unless I actually do it myself. I am using save states to give myself the best possible outcome when necessary, but this is just locking in things that already happened and are therefore legitimate. Anyway, we black out and walk north towards the Viridian Forest, weaving to ensure we take the most efficient path. In the forest, we need to head northeast before passing right by an item. It's good practice to pick up anything along the fastest path. As I mentioned before, Pokemarts are not really possible in this challenge. Here we find an antidote, which isn't that helpful, but we'll find some better ones as we go. After some ups and downs, we reach the final stretch of the forest, where we're forced to fight bug catcher Sammy and his level 9 Weedle. We could interact with Sammy from the side, but this would be unoptimal. If we instead walk into the trainer's sightline, the game triggers the battle before counting the step, allowing me to move onto the tile without actually taking a step. Again, this is likely because the developers wanted to prioritize battles over hatching eggs, but it presents us with a huge opportunity. I call these sightline steps, a free movement of one tile whenever they occur. Anytime we have the opportunity to take a sightline step, we want to take it. I'll note that wild Pokemon fights being triggered do still count as a step. There's no way to get free steps by finding a bunch of wild Pokemon. I make my way out of the forest and into Pewter City, the location of gym number 1. It's the only thing I need to do here, so I head right for it. In the gym, our best path is straight ahead, saving a sightline step from Camper Liam and putting us right in front of Brock. With Ivysaur, Brock is a breeze, and we get the first badge. We can then walk back out of the gym, loop around, and head east towards Route 3. Of course, there is a devious way to do this in less steps. It is so many steps to walk all the way out and around the gym. It would be better if we could warp back to the Pokemon Center and walk from there. However, there's no way to dig or escape rope out of the gym, and no way to fly or teleport yet once we're outside. What about the blackout warp like we did before? Well, last time we blacked out by fighting a wild Pokemon, and of course, this isn't a thing inside of gyms. Blacking out against Brock would just result in a loss, and you can't black out on the gym trainer since they won't fight you after you get the badge. There is no way to trigger a fight after defeating Brock. However, fighting isn't the only way to lose HP. Let's go back to the last tile of tall grass on Route 2, where we can find Wild Weedle. These Pokemon know the move Poison Sting, which have a chance of poisoning my Pokemon. Poison has a unique overworld characteristic. Every 5 steps, poisoned Pokemon lose 1 point of health. So, if I were to lose all my health after the gym fight, we could warp back and go from there. As a note, there are no poison Pokemon on Route 1 or 22, and without access to Route 2, this is the first time we can take advantage of this strategy. Here's the plan. First, since we're gonna be blacking out, we grind on wild Pokemon as much as we can, getting Ivysaur to level 19 and Pidgeotto to level 23. This is extremely unnecessary for the first gym, but hey, it's possible, so why not? Next, we need to poison Pidgeotto on a wild Weedle. This is why we needed a second Pokemon. Our grass starter is part poison type, meaning it cannot be poisoned and would not be able to utilize the poison blackout strategy. Now, we walk north, taking poison damage. This time, before going to the gym, we pop into the Pokemon Center to set it as the checkpoint. This is required, otherwise we'd black out back to Viridian. Then, we head for the gym, defeat the trainer, and take on Brock. After this fight, we want to poison blackout as soon as possible, but making this happen requires a bit of understanding about poison mechanics. As I said, poisoned Pokemon take 1 hit of damage every 5 steps. But this isn't tracked globally. It's not like every time this counter goes up by 5, we take a hit of damage. Things that you do in this game can reset the counter, namely, entering a Pokemon battle. So, defeating Brock resets our poison counter, meaning after taking 5 steps, we take a tick of damage. We want this to be what blacks us out, so we only take 5 steps after defeating Brock. Of course, this means we need to end the fight at exactly 1 HP on Pidgeotto, with Ivysaur knocked out. And because I'm not allowed to set anything manually, we genuinely need to get this to happen. But this is where being a high level is an extra advantage. Not only can I make sure I have enough HP to walk to the gym, but I have enough HP and strength to manipulate the fight to go exactly as I want it to. In this case, that means switching around to get extra turns of poison damage against Onix. If things go exactly right, I can sacrifice Ivysaur to Onix, switch into 1 HP, and knock out Onix with a gust. This gets me the first gym badge, and I take 5 steps and lose my last hit point to poison, blacking out. This takes us to the last checkpoint we set, which is the Pewter City Pokemon Center. We walk out and walk over to the aid, getting there 16 steps faster with the poison blackout method. In this challenge, I am exhausting all of my Pokemon knowledge to do whatever it takes to beat this game in the fewest steps. But is there a chance that I missed something and there's actually a way to lower the step count further? Sure, I mean, I'm not a genius, I'm a Pokemon YouTuber. If you think there's anything I missed or have any theories on ways to lower the step count, please let me know in the comments. I'll be testing everything out, and I'll let you know if there's an updated step count in the pinned comment. Also, if you want to test stuff out yourself, you can. There's a link in the description to the step count version of this game created by Viperio, so check it out and try to lower the step count. While you're commenting and checking out the mod, if you enjoy videos like this, it would mean the world to me if you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Breaking down Pokemon games in these types of challenges is what I love to do, so I'd love for you to join me in all the fun stuff I have planned. On Route 3, we need to travel east while navigating up and down around rocks and ledges. So we can save steps by walking into the sightlines of Last Janice, Bugcatcher Colton, Youngster Ben, and Bugcatcher Greg. Because we now need to head south, it's not beneficial to go up and fight Last Sally. Only walk east to fight Bugcatcher James. We want to do this where we can still jump over a ledge though, because the ledges also save us a step. Ledges take up a row of tiles, so you actually move 2 tiles but only take 1 step. Jumping over the ledge is a step less than walking around it. The last trainer on Route 3 is Last Robin, our first trainer that moves around. I'll refer to them as spinners, even though there isn't much spinning going on here, and we need to be cautious of them. As we know, stepping into trainer sightline saves us a step, but if we do this incorrectly, we could take a step, the game registers it as a step, and then the spinner sees us. Sometimes this looks like a free step, but it's not, so I have to be careful to actually walk into their sightline. But I do and defeat her, and take the shortest path up to the entrance of Mount Moon. In the cave, we want to continue walking into trainer sightlines where we can, and hug walls as we navigate through. Some trainers walk in a pattern where we can only get a sightline step on a certain spot, so we make sure to hit that. Otherwise, this location is pretty straightforward, and we complete the final trainer battle and climb the ladders back to the surface. On Route 4, the most efficient path is staying exactly in line from Mount Moon, jumping a ledge south, and walking up to jump a final ledge to walk into Cerulean City, where we have an interesting decision to make. Here in Cerulean, we have 2 tasks that we need to accomplish. getting the SS Ann ticket from Bill, and defeating the second gym leader, Misty. We need to do both in order to move on, but we can do them in whichever order we want. So what makes sense to do first? Both of these tasks involve walking to accomplish a task, and rather than spending a bunch of steps walking back, we'll want to warp back to Cerulean. That means the very first thing I need to do is go to the Pokemon Center to set Cerulean City as my checkpoint. Now that I'm standing outside this building, I'm always gonna go from here to Bill and back, and from here to Misty and back. Because my starting and ending location is the same, both tasks will be exactly the same number of steps. However, if we went up to Bill first, we'd be able to get poisoned on one of the many trainers with poison Pokemon and warp back to Cerulean that way. That would fully heal us for our trip to Misty, but there are no Pokemon in this gym that can poison me, so I wouldn't be able to warp back after the fight is over. Instead, I can get poisoned on a trainer's coughing in Mount Moon and walk with that poison into Cerulean. I carry that poison all the way through Misty, and after ending the battle at 1 HP, we take 5 steps and black out, warping me back to the checkpoint. Since poison is possible the other direction, this is the optimal order to complete the Cerulean tasks. Let's talk about this path up to Bill though. We defeat our rival thanks to our excessive grinding and walk the straight line up the Nugget Bridge. From here, we head east and find a maze of trainers and bushes to go through. So we need to do a bit of testing here. First, going the clockwise path is 5 fewer steps than counterclockwise. Then we want to avoid this trainer seeing us and blocking us, because we can instead walk into his sightline here before heading south. Making sure to step into both of these trainers' sightlines, we hit our final branching path. Going south is 3 steps faster, and we hit the final trainer and make it to Bill, taking 3 steps and dying to poison. Wait, only 3 steps? Yes. Remember that I said that the only thing that resets the poison counter is entering a battle. Well, talking to Bill isn't a battle. The last time our poison counter was reset was against Lass Haley. We needed to end this fight with 4 HP of damage, so we could spend 3 on the walk to Bill's and 1 after getting the SS Ann ticket. But because there's some time between the poison counter reset and blacking out, there's some wiggle room. Since we approach this battle from the south, we can also walk into Haley's sightline a tile lower. It's the same number of steps. We're just moving up after the fight instead of before. But this step is now counted in the poison counter. Because of this, we can black out after only 2 steps and make it back to Cerulean in 1,323 steps. Our next task is to board the SS Ann and get the HM for cut. So we head through the house and hug the wall against the rocket grunt, and immediately navigate south. On Route 5, we see an example of when hugging turns tightly isn't always the best solution. By staying as close to the underground entrance as possible, we hit the door at step 1,458. But if we go slightly out of the way, we can get there in 2 fewer steps. That's because walking out of the way is offset by the 6 steps we save from jumping over ledges. Now into the underground, where we have no choice but to spend 50 or so steps running down this endless hallway. But we're out and into Route 6, where we make a direct line south, stepping into the sightline of Bugcatcher Elijah on the way. Before I hit Vermilion City, I spend some time grinding, getting evolutions to both Pidgeot and Venusaur. Also during my grinding, I found not 1, but 2 shiny Pokemon. Wish I had found that shiny Pidgey earlier so I could catch it, but it's fine. Although it isn't necessary, I also decide that it's beneficial to catch 3 Meowths here. Meowth is the only Pokemon in this game that has the ability Pickup, which has a chance of generating items after every battle. These include a bunch of unhelpful items, but a few are really great. Namely Oran Berries, PP Ups, and rare candies. Anything that can make my team stronger is a huge benefit. I'm only able to do this because I will not need other Pokemon for those 3 team slots. I did have to leave 1 empty though, as there's 1 more Pokemon I need to catch. But that's a later problem. We have another thing to worry about as I finish Route 6 and walk into Vermilion. I didn't want to address the elephant in the room, but I can't ignore it any longer. I have to start thinking about how I'm gonna tackle the Kanto Open World Nightmare issue. still working on the name. In these games, you can complete gyms 3 through 7 in basically any order you want to, which is great unless you're me trying to figure out how to do this in the fewest steps. The things you decide to do now can affect your options way later in the run, and there are so many factors that go into this. But ultimately, all we can do is think about what our options are now and make decisions. Let's start in Vermilion. What are my mandatory tasks? Get the cut HM on the SSN. That's it. What are my optional tasks? I can defeat the 3rd gym leader Surge, and I can get the bike voucher at the Pokemon fan club, but I don't need to do either right now. I could poison warp on the ship back to Cerulean, which is where I need to backtrack to next. This would allow me to bypass spending all the steps to walk off the ship. That seems like a good strategy. However, skipping the 3rd gym causes an enormous problem. Beating Surge gives you the ability to use Fly, an extremely useful tool in this challenge. Not having Fly means I'd need to walk back to Vermilion later, and even from the closest spot I'll ever be, it's more steps to walk back than to walk off the SSN, and that's not even considering all the steps you'd save from having the ability to fly. Coming back to Vermilion is off the table. I need to do everything now. So, before entering the city, I poisoned Pidgeot on Wild Oddish. I'm now carrying that poison into Vermilion city limits, and we walk straight to the SSN. Going through the ship and right up to the rival fight, getting the HM and walking back is all necessary, since the gym is blocked by a cut tree. We teach cut to Venusaur, but before we head that direction, we pop into the fan club to get the bike voucher. We'll need this later, and walking out of this building is less steps than walking out of the gym, so we do it first. Then we enter the 3rd gym. This puzzle involves finding 2 trash cans with secret buttons. But to avoid extra steps, I need the buttons to be located on the line I want to walk. For this reason, I reset the gym until I get the buttons right along the inner path. Going left or right around the trash cans doesn't matter. Each way, you can only be spotted by 1 trainer, and it puts you right next to Surge. This whole time, I've been taking poison damage, but because Pidgeot has so much HP, we can handle it. I end the Surge fight at 1 HP, take 5 steps, and black out, sending me all the way back to Cerulean. This was important because now we need to go directly east of here to Route 9, but we can get there in 2 ways. We could go back through the house and around, or down and cut the tree. The cutway is actually a full 18 steps less, making it a no-brainer. Because we go this way anyway, it's worth considering if we want to pick up the bike now. If we were to step out of our way, we'd spend 26 steps doing this. Instead, we could fly here later, walk to the bike, and die to poison. But this process takes 30 steps, making it 4 fewer steps to grab the bike now. Route 9 and 10 are straightforward. We take the shortest path, stepping into trainer sightlines wherever we can. The most efficient route takes us right past 2 hidden items, a rare candy on Route 9, and a super potion on Route 10. Now we walk through the rock tunnel, a long trek, but one with a clear best path. The only choice we need to make is a split path in the basement, but going the left way is 10 fewer steps. I do have another decision once I exit the cave. We can head left or right to Lavender, with the left path getting us there in 4 fewer steps. We don't have anything to do in Lavender, simply walk through and go to Route 8. Here, we can only walk into the sightline of Last Julia, as walking into Gamer Rich's sightline is too far out of the way. I do walk right by him though, so I fight him for some extra experience. It doesn't save any steps though. I can cut to a shortcut, walking right by a hidden Lepa berry and out the other side. Timing sightline steps for these bikers saves me 2 steps, and another in the view of Super Nerd Aiden. Into the second underground path, we hit 2,500 steps, popping out onto Route 7 and hugging the trees to enter Celadon City, another location with lots of decisions to make. Here, we must get the Sylph Scope from defeating Giovanni in the Pokemon hideout. That's the only thing we are required to do right now because we need it for the Pokemon Tower. But there are lots of things that we'll need to do at some point. This includes defeating Erica to get the 4th badge, getting the T to enter Saffron City, and getting the HM for Fly near Route 16. We'll also need to enter Cycling Road from here, but without the Pokeflute, we can't do that yet. This is going to be the best way to get to Fuchsia. Routes 12 through 15 is significantly more steps than Cycling Road. This means we'll need to come back to Celadon, and therefore, we can think about what makes sense to do now and what makes sense to do on the second trip. The very first thing I need to do is get the HM for Fly. I know this seems counterintuitive since we'll be closer to this spot when we wake up the Snorlax on the second trip, but getting Fly ASAP makes literally everything easier. Without Fly, we can only ever have one checkpoint set. As an example, after getting the Sylph Scope, we could warp to Lavender to get the Pokeflute, but we'd have no way to warp back to Celadon. The steps we'd take to walk all the way back can be mitigated just by getting Fly now, because with Fly, any city we've entered can be used as a checkpoint. The ability to go wherever we need to completely offsets making the walk down here twice. We cut the tree, save a step on this double battle, and walk into the Fly House, waiting for the NPC to move into the closest spot. Because we caught that Pidgey as our Poison Warp Pokemon, we have a Fly user. It's 3 steps to walk back outside and use Fly again. But because getting this HM is not a battle, it might make sense to instead take 1 step and Poison Blackout. However, blacking out doesn't put you outside the Pokemon Center like it does in Pokemon Emerald. It puts you inside, so you'd always need to take 4 more steps to get out. That's a total of 5 steps, so it's better to just take 3 and then fly back. We actually had a similar situation back at Bill's house. We ultimately decided to take 2 steps and Poison Blackout, and with the 4 steps leaving the Pokemon Center, that's a total of 6 steps. It's only 4 steps to exit Bill's house and get outside, but of course we didn't and couldn't have access to Fly at this point. But we did have access to something similar. On routes 24 and 25, you can catch Abra, who knows 1 move, Teleport. Outside a battle, Teleport takes you to the last checkpoint, without making you take the 4 steps in the Pokemon Center. With Abra, we could take 4 steps in Bill's and teleport back to Cerulean, getting us there in 2 fewer steps than the Poison Blackout method we used. So why didn't we use Teleport? Well, on our optimal Route 24 and 25 path, we don't ever walk through tall grass. In fact, the closest we can ever get is here, and diverting to tall grass to catch an Abra is an extra 10 steps. So it's only worth doing if Abra's teleport can save us more than 10 steps later. As I stated, we saved 2 steps in Bill's house, but then that's it. No other situation where we blackout warped could have been faster via teleport, because teleport can't be used inside. It doesn't work on the SSN or the Vermilion Gym. But what about in the future? Well, we'd never need teleport because Fly does the exact same thing, just better. If we are outside, we can fly anywhere we want instead of only having the option to return to our checkpoint. Because teleporting Abra takes 10 steps to catch, and we only save 2 steps, we do not want to catch it. When we fly, we land outside the Celadon Pokemon Center, and now it's time for the Pokemon Hideout. We walk to the back, beat the grunt, and make our way down the stairs. First, we need to get the lift key, so we step into the sightline of this grunt before heading down again. The only way to get where I need to go is by navigating spin tiles. In this section, there's really only one path that works, so there's not any decisions to make. Interesting to note though, is that tiles you spin across still count as a step. This was intriguing to me because, what if you hatched an egg while you were spinning? Would that stop the spin and then let you go into places you weren't intended to? It seems like when you're supposed to hatch an egg, if you're spinning, the egg just won't hatch and instead hatches a few steps later. This wouldn't be relevant for this challenge anyway, since going to the daycare is too many steps, but it was something interesting I thought about. Anyway, once we're through the spin tiles, we head down the stairs and make a beeline for this grunt. We step into his sightline per usual, and that puts us close to the dropped lift key. With this item, we can use the elevator to fight Giovanni and get the Sylph Scope. From this spot, walking back up a floor and hitting the next tile maze can be done on step 2902, but there's a faster way. Back in Cerulean, defeating this grunt gave us an item, TM28, which contains a move that can be used outside of battle, Dig. This move essentially acts as an escape rope, allowing you to teleport out of caves and back to the entrance. For some reason in FireRed, this works on a few non-caves as well, and the Pokemon Hideout is the first one. Meowth can learn Dig, and although we didn't need to catch Meowth specifically for this, plenty of other Pokemon can learn Dig, it does work out well. If we dig out immediately after getting the lift key, we can walk back down, getting to the tile maze on step 2878, 24 fewer steps. The bottom spin tile takes us directly where we want to go, and from there, we follow the standard path to get through. I pop in the elevator, go to basement floor 4, defeat both grunts, and engage with Giovanni. Fighting Giovanni is the same number of steps from his left or below him, but the spot below puts us 2 steps closer to the Sylph Scope. With Venusaur's special attacks and Pidgeot's brute force, this fight is easy. Once we have this item, we are done in the hideout. Once again, the fastest way out is to use Dig, which takes 0 steps, so we don't even need to consider using the 9-step Poison Blackout. Dig also puts us outside the game corner rather than the Pokemon Center, so it's less steps to walk down to the Celadon gym now. It takes a lot of steps to get to the gym itself, so it's never worth it to walk anywhere after defeating the gym. With all the poison Pokemon along the shortest path, which includes 3 trainers, we've no problem ending the fight with Erica on 1 HP, walking 5 steps, and blacking out back to Lavender Town. I did test walking out of the gym and flying to Lavender, but this is 4 more steps. I also want to note that there's a reason I walked to get Fly before I completed the hideout in the gym. If I wanted to switch the order, blacking out in the gym would still take me back to Lavender, but this time without Fly, which is what I want to avoid. I would need to go 6 steps out of the way to set Celadon as the checkpoint, which are steps I don't need to take by getting Fly first. With the ability to travel to any city I've already been to, checkpoints are irrelevant. From Lavender, we can easily hit the next required location, the Pokemon Tower. With our overleveled Pidgeot, we breeze through the rival fight and start the climb. There are a few minor splitting paths, so I just test them all out, confirming the southern route is faster on the 3rd floor and the middle route is faster on the 4th floor. With the Sylph Scope, we can identify and knock out the Marowak, and meet Mr. Fuji on the top floor. Fuji brings you to his house to give you the Poke-Flute. And to leave, we need to consider our options. We can't dig in here, and even with 1 step of poison, it's a total of 5, including the Pokemon Center steps. Just walking out and flying is 4 steps, so this is the best bet. But where exactly are we gonna fly to? In theory, there are a few things we could do now. We could walk to Saffron for the gym in Silphco, we could go down to Fuchsia for the gym in Safari Zone, or we could head to Cinnabar for the gym in Mansion. However, only one of these tasks is possible now. We don't have the T from Celadon yet, meaning we wouldn't be able to walk into Saffron. We also don't have the Surf HM from the Safari Zone, so we couldn't surf to Cinnabar. That just leaves one option. So, I fly back for round 2 of Celadon City, and you may be wondering why I waited until this Celadon trip to pick up the T, and there's a very good reason. When I entered the city the first time, it was by walking from Route 7, so to hug the trees as much as possible, I was down here. As I fly back to Celadon, we're placed outside the Pokemon Center up here. Both journeys to Route 16 take us past the tea house, but now we walk by the house a few steps closer. Because I knew I could hold off until now, getting the tea on this trip instead of the first saves 4 steps. I also considered blacking out once I got the tea, but all things considered, it's actually faster to just walk out now and keep going down to Route 16. With the Poke-Flute, we can finally wake up the Snorlax and encounter the final Pokemon I want to catch. Thankfully, we're given 5 Pokeballs from Professor Oak at the beginning of the game, so I can catch 5 Pokemon without ever entering a Pokemart. Snorlax may seem like an odd choice given my current team makeup, but catching Snorlax is 100% mandatory to take the fewest steps. I'll explain shortly. Thanks to grabbing both the bike voucher and the bike when it was most optimal, we have what we need to enter Cycling Road. The overworld is interesting here. Certain parts have a downward slope that automatically move you tiles. This movement does count as steps, despite not actually making the movement yourself. You can still control the movement, somewhat at least. It's not very easy to do. In fact, this route has one of the only spots I can grind on before my next Poison Blackout. But grinding here would, it would suck. So before this, I decided to grind on the top floor of the Pokemon Tower instead. The most efficient cycling road path is to walk into the sightlines of these 2 bikers before going down. The bikers only have a vision of 1 tile, so this parallel biker can't ever see us. The route splits in 3 after this. And because we came from the right side and need to end up on the right side, we want to stick to the rightmost path. Going straight down puts us between the center and right paths. but it seems like this biker never lines up with our movement. It would be ideal to take a sightline step here. These trainer paths are local rather than global, meaning he doesn't start his loop when we enter the route, he starts it when he first comes on screen. Because we always enter the same way, he always misses us. To try and adjust, we would need to take steps back up, which we want to avoid. There is a way to catch him though. Since we need to go right anyway, we try a few times to get stopped on a wild Pokemon encounter. This starts his cycle as we enter from a new angle, which sometimes aligns, and we save a step. We want to hang as left as possible, meaning no other trainers can see us. This is because we have to go slightly left at the bottom of the route. Okay, there's one other biker that can see us, and again, we need to time this cycle better. And I have a fun trick to do it. Because I'm directly along this left side wall, I can hold left on the last possible tile, locking me in place without stepping and coming into the final biker's view, starting his local cycle. This means I can hang out until the perfect timing and get a sightline step. This final trainer has 5 poison Pokemon, and I want to make sure that Pidgeot gets poisoned. From here, we hug the fence and enter the gate to Fuchsia City. The city limits don't start right away though. Technically, this is still Route 18. Fuchsia doesn't start until right here. And this is important. As soon as I step into the city limits, the game registers you as visiting the city, which crucially allows you to fly there. And flying to the Pokemon Center is always correct here. If we wanted to go to the gym first, it's faster from the Pokemon Center. If we want to go to the Safari Zone first, it's faster from the Pokemon Center. We can use the mechanics of fly to optimize our routing. I decide to start with the Safari Zone. There are 2 possible ways to get there through cut trees, and they actually both take the same number of steps. We pay the fee to enter, and now the game is overtly counting our steps, but we won't need all 500 of them. We take the normal quickest path to the back region of the Safari Zone. We need to divert a few steps to pick up the gold teeth, and then head straight for the house. Here, we get the HM for Surf, which we need to reach Cinnabar Island. Now we need to exit the house, and our Pidgeot is poisoned, so we can poison Blackout, except that we don't want to. A poison Blackout would be 5 steps, 1 to Blackout and 4 in the Pokemon Center. Instead, we could walk out and fly, but that's also 5 steps. Well, because we're in the Safari Zone, we have a third option. Without taking any steps, we can go into the menu and retire, which stops our Safari Zone immediately. It brings us back to the gate where we only need to take 3 steps to walk out, unless of course we go immediately back in to fly out, which only takes 1 step. But then why were we poisoned? Well, there's one follow-up task we need to complete. From the Pokemon Center, we hop the ledge and enter this house, where we find the NPC who trades us the gold teeth for the Strength HM. We will need the Strength HM in Victory Road, so doing this is required. And although we didn't need to do this right after the Safari Zone, it's actually in our best interest. There are no trainers inside, meaning the last fight we can enter is from wild Pokemon. By encountering a Pokemon on the exact right tile, we can time our steps so we get a poison tick on the next step after getting the HM. This is a total of 5 steps, where walking out and flying is 6 steps. We save 1 step by carrying poison all the way from Cycling Road to here. Of course, after blacking out, the team is refreshed and ready to roll. We could walk over and fight the Fuchsia Gym now, and doing so would be optimal in terms of steps. But I would need to poison Blackout after defeating Koga. And between now and then, there's no place for me to grind Pidgeot and Venusaur, leaving tons of PP and levels on the table. Instead, because it's the same number of steps, I'm going to Saffron City, because despite having multiple inside tasks that require backtracking, we'll never need poison. But before that, we need to enter the city through the gates to give the tea to the guard. The Celadon City entrance puts us closest to Silphco, which we need to complete before we can access the gym. It's worth checking if flying to the Pokemon Center and walking from there is faster, and I find it's the exact same number of steps. This actually means if we can get into the city from any direction faster, we can fly to the Pokemon Center and save steps. However, testing from each direction confirmed that it was more steps. It's also worth considering if I was ever closer to Saffron with access to the T, but I wasn't, so ducking into Saffron earlier wasn't an option. The best bet is to fly into Celadon, jump the ledge and grind on some Pokemon, and walk through the gate to Saffron City. Silphco is a sprawling mess of warps and trainers, so it's intimidating to think about how to do everything efficiently. But it's easier to think about it in terms of things we need to accomplish, and there's actually only two. 1, we need to pick up the key card from the 5th floor, and 2, we need to defeat Giovanni on the 11th floor. We need the key card to get there, so first it's simply a matter of getting to the key card as quickly as possible. We need to get to floor 5, and Silphco has 3 ways to climb levels: by stairs, by elevator, and by warp. We can get to the 5th floor directly by the stairs or the elevator, but there's also a warp on the 3rd floor that takes you to the 5th. In each case, we'd still have to fight this grunt and take the warp and back. After testing out all the possibilities, I determined that taking the elevator straight there took the fewest steps. We pick up the key card and task 1 is done. Now for task 2, defeat Giovanni. There's one path to him, and it starts from this warp on the 3rd floor. If we take the elevator directly there, it takes 96 steps. Taking that warp we just tested back to the 3rd floor is 94 steps. But there's actually another warp between the 3rd and 5th floors in this western room, and this path takes only 90 steps. This would be the correct way if dig didn't work in Silphco, but it does. So from the spot we got the key card, we can dig to the entrance, walk to the elevator, ride to the 3rd floor, and get there in 84 steps, making it the optimal route. Following the path, we beat Blue, warp to the top floor, defeat a grunt, and trigger the fight with Giovanni. Once we triumph, Giovanni leaves and we can talk to the president and get the Master Ball. However, speaking to the president is not required to progress, and we don't need the Master Ball. We've already caught everything we need. So, after the Rocket Leader disappears, we can immediately dig to leave Silphco. Not only does this take 9 less steps than a Poison Blackout, but it also puts us outside the building rather than down south at the Pokemon Center. This puts us way closer to our final stop in Saffron, the gym, where, yay, more warping! The layout of the Saffron gym is a bit convoluted, but I see 3 paths to Sabrina. The speedrun path of diagonal, diagonal, down gets us there in 30 steps. But this is optimized for time and therefore avoids trainers. Going up, down, down, across gets us there in 24 steps. But we still miss all the trainers since we're only walking along the sides and bottom. Going up, across, down, down allows us to hit a trainer along the top, saving a sightline step and getting us to Sabrina in 23 steps, where Pidgeot absolutely annihilates her glass cannons. In every other gym we've conquered, the best way of exiting is the Poison Blackout strategy, because walking out of the gym is more than 9 steps. This is absolutely the case here, since this game actually makes you retrace all of your warping for some reason. But the Saffron gym has a characteristic that makes it different than every other gym in the game. Here, you can actually use dig. And why is that the case? I don't know. No time to worry about that. The game lets us dig, we dig, baby. From here, we can fly back to Fuchsia and walk to the gym. Again, since we're just going fly spot to fly spot, this is the same number of steps as if we did it first. But because we had the opportunity to grind, we're able to efficiently use our PP without any going to waste. The Fuchsia gym is incredibly straightforward, since there's only one possible route. We can step in 3 trainer sightlines though, and fight a 4th trainer just for the love of the game. Against Koga, we let him kill most of our Pokemon, poison Pidgeot, and try the fight until we end with 1 HP. After receiving the badge, we take 5 steps and black out, heal and take 4 steps, and we can continue on. Now it's time to head down to Cinnabar for the 7th badge. The route from Fuchsia through Seafoam Islands is way longer, so we can fly to Pallet Town instead. From our house, we just need to surf down Route 21. This is possible now that we have the badge from Koga, and the Pokemon that's going to learn Surf is Snorlax. Strangely, Snorlax is the only Pokemon I can catch that learns Surf and doesn't take any extra steps. Selecting Squirtle as my starter would take 4 extra steps, and picking up the gift Lapras is 2 extra steps. On all the routes we've walked through, there are exactly 0 water Pokemon available to catch. And we don't go right past any fishermen, so fishing a Pokemon isn't possible either. Additionally, Nidoking and Nidoqueen can learn it, and Nidoran is available on Route 3. However, we'd have to take a few extra steps to deviate from the optimal path into the tall grass. There are a few other non-water Pokemon that learn Surf. However, the only place that you find these Pokemon is in the Safari Zone. That shouldn't be a problem though, because we walk through the Safari Zone and have plenty of Safari Balls. And while that's true, there's a caveat. Right after the Safari Zone, we get the Strength HM and Blackout. In order to do that, all of our Pokemon need to be dead except for one Pokemon with poison. That way when Pidgeot dies, we actually black out. If we were to catch a Pokemon in the Safari Zone, it would be alive and not poisoned. And because you can't actually fight any Pokemon here, we can't faint it afterwards. For this reason, Snorlax is the only Surf Pokemon we can catch, and we teach him the HM. Surf introduces an interesting quirk. When you jump from land to water via Surf, the game moves you a tile, but it doesn't count it as a step, which makes sense because you aren't stepping on anything. However, if you jump from your Surf Pokemon to land, the game also does not count it as a step. Not sure about that one, but hey, that's just how this game is programmed. What that means is that every time we jump on or off Surf, we save a step. So how do we take advantage of this? Route 21 consists of a bunch of islands and trainers, so we need to find the way from this point in Pallet Town to the entrance of the Pokemon Mansion. The mansion sits on the north end of Cinnabar, and the city limit of Cinnabar starts here. Because you can't mark Cinnabar as a city you visited until you're so far south, it's always faster to walk there from Route 21 rather than fly to the Pokemon Center and walk from there. Because of the sign blocking the way, our goal is to get into this line of tiles. Going directly south from our house is blocked by a fence, so we can either go left or right around it. If we went the left way and then directly south from there, we'd have to move to the right because of these rocks. Instead, by going right around the fence, we are closer to everything else, and even if we wanted to go as left as possible, it's still faster to do that from the right, so we always want to do that. From this path, we need to move 3 tiles to the right to be in our target line. At first, it seems smart to jump onto this island with tall grass. We need to move right anyway, and by jumping off and on again, we can save 2 steps. However, by being just 1 tile over, we barely miss a bunch of islands and opportunities to save even more steps. After tons of testing, I confirmed that going directly down is the most efficient path. We jump on and off this island, step into this swimmer's sightline, and onto this island. In a perfect world, I would have jumped here, putting me in line to jump on and off here, and saving 2 steps. But there's a rock in the way, so I couldn't go straight down. I can't save a step from this fisherman, but I fight him for some extra experience. Back on and off for a little jump sequence. Swimmers can only see you from the water, so it's actually best to go to him. It's a free movement to the right and back to the left, so getting seen by him is actually better than walking straight down. We need to move back left so we can hit this trainer's sightline and, crucially, land again on an island, where another jump saves a sightline step. Straight down from here, and we can walk to the entrance for the most efficient path. I'll note that I also considered hitting the mansion from the left side, since you can surf around to the entrance. But at best, you can get to the entrance in the same number of steps as from the right side. The Pokemon Mansion is fairly straightforward, minus the staircases that you can walk right through for some reason. Following the standard path and dropping to the basement, we can pick up the secret key. Before exiting, we need to get poisoned for Blaine. So we do so on Wild Coughing, and grind a bit too. Dig works here, so we dig out and walk to the gym, which is 2 fewer steps than flying to the Pokemon Center and walking from there. The gimmick of this gym is these machines that ask you stupid questions, and if you get them right, the door to the next section opens. Get them wrong though, and the trainers fight you. Most of these machines are not super accessible, so it's usually closer to just fight the trainer instead. You can't get any sightline steps here, but defeating these guys still opens the door to the next room. For each section, fighting the trainer is either fewer or the same steps as answering the question from the machine. The issue, however, is health. For the first time, my high-level Pidgeot is having trouble staying healthy between overworld damage and losing an eighth of my health every time I stay in battle. Blaine has 4 high-level Pokemon, and needing all of my other Pokemon to be dead makes this section actually fairly difficult. Thankfully, I can finally get some use out of the Oran berries that Meowth has been picking up for us. Not only does it keep Pidgeot healthy, but it allows me to get exactly how much health I need to easily end the Blaine fight at 1 HP. Sections like this are why I knew just having Venusaur was not gonna cut it. I needed to have at least one other strong Pokemon. We get the 7th badge, and Poison Black out of there. The open world portion of the game has finally been completed. So we can fly right to Viridian to walk to the 8th and final gym. There are spin tiles here as well, and you have to travel both up this center corridor and this right side path to clear out trainers in your way. If you go up the middle section first, you can sneak down this cheeky section, putting you at Giovanni 2 steps faster than going right first. For the last time, we poison ourselves against Giovanni, end the fight at 1 HP, and get the 8th and final badge. With all 8 badges collected, it's time for the final trek of the game. Left from Viridian, we defeat our rival and walk the rest of Route 22. Surfing here saves 2 steps from both hopping on and hopping off, rather than the ledge jump, which just saves 1 step. Now we walk up Route 23, showing our badges to the guards. It doesn't matter if you engage with them or just walk into their sightlines, both count as steps. We pick up a max ether on the island, and take the leftmost path here for 2 fewer steps. Otherwise, it's business as usual as we enter Victory Road. The final cave is a series of strength puzzles, where you move rocks onto buttons that remove blockades and allow you to progress. This is why we needed to pick up the HM in Fuchsia City. Many of my Pokemon know strength, so we can begin. Moving the boulder itself isn't a step, just where you actually walk. This will be important. There's really only one way to complete the first strength puzzle, which is the standard way of solving it. The only real choice you have is which direction to go from here, since you can actually walk on top of the button. However, you need to get to the left side of the rock, so this way is faster. I did try to dig out of the cave to warp me closer to the staircase, but it resets the strength puzzle, so digging out isn't an option. We step into the sightline of cool trainer Naomi and Ronaldo and climb to the 2nd floor. The second strength puzzle can only be completed one way, but I need to be careful. It's natural to follow the rock after you push it, but once it's on the button, that's not necessary. We want to immediately turn and move away now, over to the staircase. Following the human instinct loses us 2 steps here. We save another sightline step on Black Belt Daisuke and hit a section where we can take either of 2 staircases. By skipping the first, we can get a sightline step on Juggler Nelson and take the 2nd staircase. On floor 3, we push the boulder to its home on the west side like a normal playthrough, and then walk back around. It's optimal to only walk into the sightline of one of these trainers, so I fight cool trainer Colby, push the rock to the 2nd floor, and follow it down. We push it directly west to its button, don't follow the boulder the final step, and go towards the ladder. Because we don't hit Nelson's sightline this 2nd time, going the first time through was optimal. One more sightline step and we walk our way to the cave exit. It's a quick walk up to the building's entrance, but we can do better. On the stairs, we officially move from Route 23 to the Indigo Plateau. So, on this tile, we can fly up to the entrance and save a few steps. Walking inside, we are not able to reach the Pokemon Center or the Pokemart. So, we need to do the Elite Four without any healing. And although this is just out of reach, I planned for this. From the very beginning, I was focused on maximizing the experience I could get onto Pidgeot and Venusaur. I didn't let any PP go to waste and tried to maximize any opportunity to grind that I had. Having 3 empty slots for Meowths was also really beneficial, allowing me to get things like PP ups that can maximize my grinding even more. By the time I make it here, Pidgeot is level 82, but we're not done yet. Meowths were also able to pick up 21 rare candies, so I can get Pidgeot all the way to level 100. With a few other helpful items like a Super Potion, a Revive, and a Max Ether, we're in great shape to stay healthy through the Elite Four. Walking through the door puts me 1 step away from the Elite Four member. Now, it's just up to my Pokemon to seal the deal. And against Lorelei, they can. We walk around her and do it again. Bruno, defeated. Agatha, defeated. Lance, defeated. Now, I take my final step, and the game carries me to the champion fight. Switching between Pidgeot and Venusaur for the best matchup, we can get through all of Blue's Pokemon and become the champion. The final cutscene happens on its own. So now we just need to enter our name into the Hall of Fame. This version of the game shows us the final step count, and here we see the number. We have completed Pokemon FireRed while only taking 5,674 steps. I'm very proud of this achievement, but I encourage you to try to beat this step count yourself, or let me know any ways you think I could have saved steps. Again, if you enjoyed this challenge, it would be amazing if you liked the video and subscribe to the channel. FireRed is one of my favorite games, and being able to optimize it like this has been a treat. Thank you so much for watching.